What's up, guys? I want to give you guys not too big of a deep dive. We want to keep this really simplistic. I don't think I'm going to make this video super long. But the important thing when you go into the gym and you do any workout is that you have a vision. Like, what the heck is the goal? What are the specifics that I'm looking for so that when I finish that workout, I can knock those off of my checklist and say I absolutely did those, or I sucked at those, or at least have notes on ways that I need to improve on the things that maybe I fell short of on that checklist. So let's review the workout just real quick. First exercise was seated leg curl. Second was lying leg curl. Third was reverse banded hack squat. And last one was prowler or sled pushes. Every one of those spots, I did roughly 3 sets of 5, except for the prowler pushes. We have roughly, if it's a down and back push, which is the way that I did it, that's about 40 yards of pushing. So that kind of gives you an idea of that. Every single spot, 3 sets, you're going to see that I didn't write down any rest periods. The reason being is I'm going to leave that as a judgment call for you guys. But the important thing to remember is that you have to be maintaining performance the entire workout until maybe the very end. Or if you're being even nitpicky, maybe that last set is when you start to have a fall off on the performance of that exercise. But make sure you're not digging yourself such a deep hole on, say, like exercise 1, that it impedes what you're getting out of exercise 2. We just want to have a healthy combination of effort, efficiency, and load. And if we can have all 3 of those and fill in this required volume, and it is required volume, then I think that'll be a good stepping stone for you guys getting back into the gym. So first question I usually get is, well, why not just 1 set to failure? We haven't earned that right yet. Systemically, we're not ready for that. You're not ready to just mechanically get burdened by an absolute full out set without things breaking down. And that could be form, that could be performance, that could be safety. You don't know. You haven't done it in your normal setting, in your normal environment, to that high effort with that amount of load. So don't expect yourself to be able to do so and then come back and do the same thing tomorrow. The whole purpose of this workout is that if I come back to the gym tomorrow, I can do something very similar on a different group of body parts and still perform at the same level I did today. All right? So if I'm going to say, or if I'm going to estimate all these exercises, especially the first set, I'm picking a load and I'm executing at a form and a tempo to where when I finish the set, I go, wow, those were hard contractions. That felt like work, but I could do 2 to 3 more repetitions. But by the time I get to that last set, since again, I don't have that capacity for workload just yet, that's what I'm working on, I may fail before 5, but it's not going to be because of load. It's just going to be because of this neurological fatigue that is starting to set in. This efficiency and this ability to contract for long durations just isn't there. And that's what I'm gauging should improve if I came around and did this workout again, and then a 3rd time, and then a 4th time. That should be getting better. Okay, so that's just kind of an overview of the actual workout. I prefer to do straight sets when I'm going into a setting where I've been away from the gym because it simplifies things. Again, my goal is to improve on the skill of the way that I'm executing every single format of an individual exercise. If I took all 4 of these exercises and lumped them into a giant set, performance is going to go psh, load is going to go psh, form is going to go psh, at some part in the workout. I may literally just get 1 set in until performance drops off. And is that really going to do me good, short and long term? I'm going to argue probably not. Okay? So when we're stepping in the gym, we have this leg workout written down. What are some key components that we're looking at? Well, I wrote those down here on the right side. The first one is function. I like to revisit what are the functions of the working muscles that I'm actually going to be training in this workout. So in the case of quads, it's this hip flexing, okay? So hip flexing, which means bending at the hip, knee extending, almost like what a leg extension provides. So throughout the entirety of the workout, I kind of want to train and maybe load both of those functions. I want my knees to get fully extended with a little bit of load. I want my knees to get flexed with a little bit of load. There's no leg extension in here, okay? However, you do get knee extending happening in your reverse banded hack squat. Does it load the hips and the knees as much in that position as a leg extension would? Probably not, but I would argue that per rep, I'm able to load everything from a systemic standpoint way more with this application than I could in a leg extension. And you could also say that the knee as a joint, from a joint preservation standpoint, from a safety standpoint, since it has a concrete contact with the ground at all times, it's a little safer exercise for your knees for some people, not for everybody. Again, that revolves a lot around form and technique and execution of that hack squat. Okay, same thing with the hamstrings. I'm trying to find a combination of exercises that at some point allows for hip extension, so which means your upper leg kicking back, and knee flexing, which means your knee bending. So that's why these leg curls in different degrees are being used. The seated leg curls working knee flexing and more of a lengthened hip. Okay, the lying leg curl is working the hamstring in more of a shortened range of motion, when we're more in a more hip extended hip, or hip extended leg, hip. It's hard for me to get all these down without actually being able to show you guys, okay? So anyway, we're getting all four of those major functions of both the quads and the hamstrings. Hip flexion, knee extension. Hip extension, knee flexion. So equal and opposite. These guys essentially are antagonists. The beauty of that is when you're doing both of these hamstring functions, when you're doing some form of squatting functions, you're going to get adductors and you're going to get glutes automatically. So those guys are automatically getting trained and they're getting loaded too. So that's just icing on the cake. So everything below the hips in some way, shape, or form is being used as a prime mover or a stabilizer, getting directly loaded or indirectly loaded. So you don't have to get too creative with your exercise selections when you pick good ones right out the gate, okay? Now, next, exercise goals. So based off of these functions, I've picked exercises that I think are going to do these exercises. What are the exercise goals? What's the part that I'm trying to master? Why am I going into that? See the leg curl, working knee flexion in a more lengthened position. Lying leg curl, working knee flexion in a more shortened position. I start here first because I'm going to be able to load this more heavily. This is going to be more neurologically demanding. If I do it second, I think I'm going to take away from this exercise. Again, 100% preference. If I sucked in contracting my hamstrings in the shortened position, they're weak as a kitten there and almost spastic, maybe I'd throw that in the beginning for a practice. But I know load comparisons, okay, load, effort, execution, this guy, in my opinion, has to be first. It's a better exercise for muscle building. It's a better exercise for neurological overload, okay? So again, there's your two functions of your hamstrings. Now, quads, okay, why are we going in there? Because the bottom of that hack squat is usually the hardest. This is an exercise that I've put a band on so it balances out the profile. So now the entirety of that exercise is super, super hard. So what's the exercise goal? To get that full knee flexing, so calf on hamstring concept, spend some time there, feel that load on my spine, get better at my bracing, practice that, and work on that knee extending aspect out of that, okay? So almost simulating a squatting leg extension since the apparatus or the application is so stinking stable, okay? It allows me to kind of be, more specific with where I'm dictating that tension at 100%. Well, not 100%, but close to 100%, what we would think internally is going into the quads that way. And then the prowler. The prowler is a dynamic way to get more concentric contractions without having the eccentric demand, which means it's an opportunity for me to continue to dig a hole, but not dig a hole so deep that I get so beat up and so sore that I can't come back and train legs, 3, 4, 5 days from now, if that was my goal. So this is a way for me to drive lactic acid in there, work on my capacity, load some more, okay? But again, not overburden that nervous system so much to where I'm getting too beat up and too dug into a hole, okay? Next in line, hardest part is spending more time in the hardest part of these exercises. See the leg curl and the contraction, lying leg curl and the contraction, the hack squat in the bottom of the hack squat, prowler, dynamic movement, but I'm being very intentional with what I'm doing. So instead of moving forward in space, okay, I'm driving down into the ground as far as I can to create these opposing forces, my foot and the ground pushing against each other to create some sort of internal tension, internal intensity, okay? Next in line, command of range of motion. So I want to take extra care and pay extra close attention to how much control I have over the entirety of the range of motion. So for you beginners out there, which is like, well, what does that mean? What does my perception of control mean? You should feel like every single repetition that you do here, every single set that you do here, if I snap my finger, boom, you could stop at whatever part of the range of motion you're in, okay? You could stop halfway down, quarter down of the hack squat. You could stop halfway up, quarter up of the hack squat, okay? That's how much control you want to have. That doesn't mean go slow. That means you have the intent that you have so much command of what you're doing, you're focusing so much on putting tension in a certain specific place, whether it's the quads or the hamstrings, that you can stop anywhere, okay? So superior command for now, which again is probably going to convert over to more of a neurological demand, which is what we want. We're going to get more out of less repetitions, okay? And it's going to give you a little bit more of an awareness of how to coordinate this skill, how to get better at this skill, okay? If I went out and just 100% just threw as fast as I could, rather than just being soft and working on my technique and long toss, how am I supposed to get any better at that skill? You can't go 0 to 100. We just need to take our small increments of getting better and better at that skill. Part of that is having command over the entirety of the range of motion. Last point, maintaining performance. I've already kind of touched on this a little bit, but this is the most important one. If I go in and I feel great and I go balls to wall in that seated leg curl and I'm doing drop sets and forced repetitions and things of that nature, I'm going to take away from the lying leg curl for sure. And then the lying leg curl is going to take away from the hack squat. And then I'll be so gassed by the time I get to the prowler that I won't be able to load the prowler, or I'm burning out 20 yards into it, okay? So keep in mind that this is not a microscopic view. You're not trying to win the exercise. You're trying to win the workout, trying to win the workout goal. What is the goal? You got 15 total repetitions, 3 sets of 5 here. 15 total repetitions, 15 total repetitions. 120 total yards roughly. You want to make sure that every one of those repetitions or yards matter. They're at the highest intensity you possibly can. They're at the biggest range of motion you possibly can, you possibly can do, and you have command of every single inch of that range of motion. So top efficiency, honing in and working on this skill. Back in the day, years ago, we used to call these workouts kind of priming workouts, because the goal isn't to bury yourself. The goal is to take this skill that you have and make it a measure of 0. It's like, well, this is where I'm at today. And make that measure of that skill go to 1. And then the next time you come back to it, make it go to a 2. So your goal isn't to be better at working hard. You already established, now I know how to work hard, but I need my efficiency to go up. And when it goes up, then I'm going to be able to work a little harder. And when it goes up a little more, then I'm going to work even harder. But you have to earn your right to go to those sets of failure or close to fatigue or all those fancy drop sets, cluster sets, all those fancy programming things that everybody likes to do. You have to earn your right to get there. If you can't execute at a high level in a straightforward workout like this, then we need to go back to the basics and work on those basics, okay? So I appreciate you guys tuning in. That's just kind of an overview mentally into the way that I approached this leg workout. Again, agree, disagree, it's not the point. The whole point is you're taking something that maybe was valuable, recycling it, converting it into your own, and passing it on.